Hello everyone and welcome to another TouchDesigner tutorial. So today I have prepared this really cool reaction diffusion visual and I'm using my webcam to capture my arms and face to kind of make this visual move. You could theoretically use anything that captures motion or your movement. But the webcam works just fine. And you really need to make sure that you are in an environment where there is enough light. Otherwise, this won't really work. All right, so let's start by deleting everything so that we can start from scratch. So the first thing that we need to do is create our camera. And to do this, we add a video device in. And there we have it. So as you can see, I have like a lamp in my face right now because if I turn it off, then you can't really see anything. So it's really important if you want a fluent visual that you have good light. All right, so the first thing that you can already notice is that if I lift my right hand, it appears on the left, which is not really what we want, especially since we are working with our camera to kind of uh, react to our visual in the correct way. So we need to flip our uh, video. And to do that, we add a flip top. So the flip top does just basically 2 or 3 things, and yeah, there's not much you can do wrong. You just flip it on the x-axis, and then my right hand is actually on the right side. Cool. So now that this is fixed, we can move on to the next step, which is to add a threshold. So if I type in threshold, and it creates, it takes our video, and here I can, for example, select so that it takes the pixels on my screen, on the camera, that are the brightest, and it turns it into white pixels. So if I turn the threshold up, uh, it lets through less pixels, and if you turn it down, it lets through more pixels. So depending on your environment where your camera is set up, you need to figure this out for yourself, how it works. So I think in my case, something like 0.6 works. You can clearly see my arms and my face. So this works for me. And another thing that you can do is, if I zoom in here a little bit, is the soften slider. So the soften slider, if I turn it up, you can see that I am more, I'm less pixelated. I'm more sharp. So I don't want to use it too much. I would say like maybe 1.5. Yeah, so if you want to capture more of your environment, then you can uh, increase the soften here. All right, I'm going to leave it like this. And yeah, really make sure that these settings, they have to be different depending on where you are. So you might need to put other numbers here. All right, so the next step is to add the feedback loop now. And to do this, we add a feedback top and a blur. And so for the blur, I'm just going to decrease the filter size to maybe like 4. We can also play around with this later, but for now, let's leave it like this. And then we need to add a level. So for the level, we want to turn the brightness up by 2 to 2. and the gamma, let's say 0.3 or 0. Yeah, we will adjust it in the end probably also. So we leave it like this, and then we go to post here, and the opacity needs to go down by a lot. So I would say like 0.15. All right, cool. So to close the feedback loop, we add a composite, and we change the operation mode to over. And because the comp needs two inputs, so we also input the original image here. Now we have it over, we have the feedback loop here over our original image. All right, feedback loop is not finished here. We also need to add a RGB key for black background and a null, just to kind of use this to know that like this is the end of our network, end network. You can call this however you want, doesn't really change anything. Yeah, and another thing that is missing here is the sharpen filter. And the sharpen filter you can't find here because it's a complex network and not a single operator. You can find it if you press open palette. By default, this should be open as well, but you can close it here. So you click on this little button here that says open palette. And here under image filters is the sharpen. So we can drag it here and treat it as a single operator. But if you go in, there's a lot of stuff happening here that I don't really know what everything does. Okay. Yeah, let's connect the comp into the sharpen and then the sharpen back. And we need to turn up the sharpen amount to 1. All right, and now we can finally close this loop by dragging our null all the way back into the feedback loop, and then we release it, and there you go. We have started our reaction diffusion. So the problem with this is that once I fill the screen, nothing really happens. And we don't want this to be a static image. So we want to create some movement. And in order to do that, I will add a displace that's being controlled by a noise. So how do we do that? First of all, let's make some space here behind after the comp we need it. And yeah, first we add a noise top, and we want this to be uh, the same size as our camera. So here it says 1280 by 720 pixels. I could go to the noise and type it in here manually, but I could also just use the comp as an input, and it will automatically take the pixels here because here it says use input. The only thing we need to change is here under output, we select only noise. All right. And here we also need to change a couple of parameters. So first of all, the period goes to 3. Then all of the harmonics go to 0. All of the harmonic stuff we don't need. And amplitude to 1.5. And monochrome we turn off. Cool. So we have the noise, but it's not moving yet. So in order to make it move, we go to transform and type in ABS time dot seconds, maybe something like times 0.3. Let's go for 0.3. And yeah, we want this noise here to displace our image here and keep displacing it as we move around. So we add a displace to the network. And before we connect the noise, we want to drastically decrease the displace weight. So let's do 0.001 and also 0.001. Yeah, and then we can finally add the noise. And if I turn this on again, you can see that now the visual is moving. Yeah, but this is a pretty classic reaction diffusion visual, and I must say that I don't really like it that much. But we can change this really quickly if we just add a level uh, into the network. So I will add it actually after the sharpen here. You can't really see it because the background is so bright. So I add a level top, and this I will turn into clamp. So now you can see that we have almost the same thing from the beginning. It's just that we can play around again with some parameters to make this look even cooler. So for example, on the level top in the in the beginning here, we can play around a little. So what happens if we turn up the opacity? We get more white. Okay, don't really want that. Oh yeah, and another important thing that's really handy for our network is the feedback loop here. Feedback top has a pulse button, and to reset the canvas, we can press pulse. But I don't want to go here and press pulse all the time, so I'm adding a keyboard chop keyboard in, and uh, what it does is if I press 1 on my keyboard, you can see that it's being activated. So I can, if I press viewer active here, I can drag this into our feedback and put it on pulse. I'm going to select chop reference, and now every time I press 1, I can reset our visual. So for example, if our screen turns white because of some experiments that we did, we can always press 1 and then reset it. All right, so yeah, opacity doesn't really help us. Maybe a little, but maybe I want to play around with these settings here. So for example, if I turn the brightness down, you can see that okay, we have a different thing here. Yeah, it doesn't look that great. This looks cool. So if you play around with the brightness, you can get like a kind of outline to your hand. That's pretty cool. And also the gamma. So if I turn it up, we get more of these worms. Or if we turn it down, then we get more like particles, which looks cool. Yeah, something like this I like a lot. It's like a zebra. Another thing we can do here is um, before the level, add an edge. So edge. Uh, okay, now it goes completely goes completely wild. I don't want that. Uh, maybe this looks cool. I don't know. it looks like raindrops now. What happens if we turn the strength like just slightly up? Does this work? Oh, not really. Maybe a little more. Okay, in our case, the strength, the edge doesn't really work that well. But there are some reaction diffusion networks where you can use the edge to create cool results, but here it seems like it doesn't really work that well. So another thing that I uh, just discovered is if we play around with the displays a little bit. So for example, if we just turn this down, we can press the displace weight here and get some numbers. And if I move my mouse to the right, I can increase it. And if I turn it to the left, I can decrease it. And what I just found out that looked pretty cool is if I put only the first one to 0.5, we get a really glitchy visual. And I like glitchy stuff. So this looks amazing, really. And yeah, you can play around uh, with the displacement a little bit, or maybe also the noise here. So let's turn this back to like 0.1. No, it was like 0.01, right? So we turn it back to normal. And with the noise now, we can, for example, speed up the movement. So if I multiply this by 1, it's moving like really fast. Or maybe 5. Would this look good? Not really. It's kind of shaking, earthquake. So I will leave it at 0.3. And maybe here on these numbers we can change something. So if I bring the period down, you can see that the movements are pretty small now, but there's a lot of them. So this is also interesting. If we turn it down, oh, we have completely different visual. So I encourage you to play around with this network and find something new, maybe, that you can incorporate here. Yeah, I think uh, that was it for this tutorial. I hope you learned something new and hope that I could inspire you to uh, create cool stuff again today. And yeah, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.